former Speaker of the Maine House. I'm so excited to be here with all of you, and I'm also proud to be here today with my daughter, Elsie. Elsie is 3. She's going to be a spider princess later today. And her future is why I care so much about this coming election. There's so much at stake for all of us this year, but especially for our kids. How our daughters are treated, how our kids are educated, how our families are supported. That is what will determine whether Maine succeeds or fails in the coming generation. And that is why I like Mike. I like Mike is a great campaign slogan. But the thing about the slogan is that everyone who knows Mike Michaud, has worked with Mike, has met Mike, really does like him. I have watched and worked with Mike for many years. He was elected to Congress the same year I was elected to the Maine House in 2002. And I've always known Mike to be honest, to be thoughtful, to be committed, passionate, kind, and most importantly, a tireless worker for what is right. We all know that Mike is the only candidate in this race who can beat Paul LePage.
Yes.
We're here today because we are united behind Mike Michaud and know that he offers the best hope for the future of our state. We know that he will win next Tuesday with all of our... Okay, it's Halloween. There are plenty of Halloween jokes that we could make about Paul LePage. But honestly, just think for a moment about the next 4 years for Maine women, for Maine kids, for Maine families, if Paul LePage is elected. Just think. It is scary and it goes beyond ghosts and goblins and even Ninja Turtles. Today you're going to hear about a number of important issues on the front burner for Maine women and voters. But I'm going to kick it off with a few things that I've been involved in the last couple of years, education and the environment. You want to hear something scary? Governor LePage isn't convinced that humans have anything to do with climate change. He argued that it might be a win for Maine, as it could open up new trade routes through the Northeast Passage as the ice melts. Maine's economy is fueled by farming, fishing, forestry, and tourism, all of which could be radically altered by climate change. And we have a governor who is still denying the science of climate change. As President Obama joked last night, our governor seriously questioned whether wind turbines had little motors in them to make the blades turn, just so they looked like they were doing something. Scary? Yes. Yes. And an issue near and dear to my heart. As hundreds of Maine's moms, dads, scientists, and the Maine Board of Environmental Protection called for a ban on BPA in baby food packaging, Paul LePage joked that the worst thing that might happen with BPA exposure is that a few women might grow little beards. Well, not only did he miss the mark on what BPA might do to the human body, he also appointed the former chemical industry lobbyist in Maine to lead his Department of Environmental Protection to make decisions about chemicals in our kids' products and a lot of other issues for the environment. Are you scared of another 4 years? Yes! The good news is that in Mike Michaud we have a guy who believes in science and he listens to experts. Mike knows that climate change is an urgent issue that we must address. He knows that reducing carbon could also be a win for our economy. And Mike has a plan to create jobs and reduce carbon through weatherizing Maine homes, more business efficiency, and creating thousands of good paying jobs in renewable energy. Let's talk about another scary issue. We have a governor in Paul LePage who has literally joked that parents will have tough luck finding good schools. He encouraged parents to pay for private schools instead of attending public schools, and if they couldn't afford it, again, tough luck! Let's talk about another scary issue. LePage has repeatedly put down our schools, our teachers, and worse, he loudly announced that we have the worst schools in the country. Of course, the facts bear out a very different story about Maine's national rankings, and that simply is not true. But from our governor, LePage has cut millions of dollars to local municipalities, setting off a chain reaction of school funding cuts, and still today he claims that he has improved our state's school funding picture. Lastly, LePage led the charge to cut Head Start funding, and kids in my home county of Knox lost their Head Start spots. Are there many worse things you can do than cutting a poor kid's chance to get a better start through preschool? Are you scared of another 4 years?
Yes!
And Mike, let's see, he believes in teachers, he supports investment in schools, he supports increased training and support for teachers. He speaks passionately about increasing investment in education for all levels, from early childhood through higher education and job training. We know that Mike knows that skills and education are the key to Maine's future. It's scary to think about another 4 more years of Paul LePage as our governor. But again, it is hopeful to think about our state rebounding under the leadership of Mike Michaud. Yes! Yes! Have the most to lose under a governor who doesn't support a woman's right to choose, who doesn't support basic protections for workers, doesn't support health care for thousands of Maine families. And you're going to hear about it today from Maine speakers, from our speakers. I am so pleased to be, whoa! You're excited. She's excited about the next one. I am so pleased to be introducing the former First Lady of Maine, Mary Herman. While many know Mary as the wife of Senator Angus King, Mary has worked her entire life to improve the lives of kids and families, especially Maine's women and children. In Mary's long and impressive career, she has worked as a teacher, a health educator, a nonprofit leader, and a powerful advocate in Augusta. She has always stood up for choice, for better education and health care for our kids. And she is here with us today because she knows how high the stakes are in this election. Please welcome my friend, Mary Herman.
Here. I am honored to be included, I'm honored to be invited, and I'm really happy to have this chance to talk about a man that I respect deeply. I really mean it. I've known Mike for 33 years, and the fact is, I've known him longer than I've known Angus King. I was a young lobbyist, and learned a lot for the Maine Women's Lobby 33 years ago. Mike was in the legislature then, and I've just known and respected him and watched his career. As some of you know, he worked with my husband Angus, first at the State House and now in Congress, and they worked together and they both reached across the aisle. They've not always agreed on everything, but that's not what really matters. They always, together, put Maine first, and that's what Mike is doing. You know Mike's history, but it's important. He started out just like his family for generations, working in the mill. But he noticed the mill runoff. He was worried. He was concerned. He said, something has to be done about this. There needs to be change. There needs to be improvement for our lives, for our families, for our neighborhood, for our environments. He went to the legislature. And he stayed, and he did more and more and more, and he grew, and his leadership style became noticed. And he went to Congress, and he continued caring about the environment, caring about veterans, caring about education, caring about women's health. And that's kind of what brings me here, is that we agree on the importance of caring for families and children. My whole adult life, starting when I was a teacher, and I got off school at 3 in the afternoon, and I went to Planned Parenthood, I learned what they did, and I started volunteering there. And that catapulted me to working in healthcare when I moved to Maine, to Washington County. Eventually I went to nursing school. So issues related to women, children, and families have just been such at the heart of me, and Mike cares. That's why this room is full of enthusiastic people. It is time for us to have a governor in Maine who will lift people up. Mike believes in investing in families. Hannah touched on that deeply, and I'm so glad she gave you some more details. Mike will bring civility to Maine government. This is really important to me, to have leaders that we can look up to, that our children can look up to, that are role models for our future. I'm going to say it again, civility in Augusta. Let's see. We can trust as women and for our families and our children and our generations. Mike does and will continue to have our backs. Mike listens, and this is a really key point. I have heard recently from people who mentioned that when Angus was in the State House and they worked with Mike, Mike would walk into a meeting and say, how can we help? 2 days ago, when Angus called Mike with his yay decision, Mike wanted to talk about hub zones, economic development. This is what matters, Maine. So, let's stay together, let's come together, let's get out the vote, let's move Maine forward. It's going to happen.
Our next speaker, Chellie Pingree. Well, I can say a lot of wonderful things about my mom and the amazing fight she continues in Washington on so many issues, from healthcare to fighting for America's small farmer. Over the last 4 years, I've watched my mom and Mike go toe-to-toe with our governor on everything from covering Maine's uninsured to our National Guard troops. My hope for my mom is that on November 5th, she'll wake up to learn that she gained a new partner in Congress with Emily Kane, in Augusta with Mike Michaud. The silly battles and nasty press releases will end, and you can all go back to work trying to do the best you can for Maine people. So again, please join me in welcoming the woman who sewed 50 spiders onto Elsie's Halloween costume. My mom, Elsie's grandma, Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. Thank you. So it's good to have a fallback career. Still got time? You need to open your costume for tonight? Well, thank you. I'm, of course, very proud to be here sharing the same stage as my wonderful daughter, Hannah, and Elsie, my granddaughter. So it's a great day, and it's a great day for all of us to be here supporting Mike. Thank you to Mary. Thank you to our good friends coming up from the AFL and NARAL who have made the trek up here to do this, and to everybody up here and out there, colleagues of mine from the legislature, people who we've worked side by side in so many big fights, and this is probably one of the biggest we've been in a long time. And let's face it, 4 days to go, can't take anything for granted. With so little time, we got to turn over every stone. And one thing that's going to be very critical in this race is making sure that every woman gets out to vote. We can make a critical difference in this election. And we all know what it's like. It's not a presidential year, and we're all just so busy. Women are busy picking up their kids, getting to the store, making ends meet, doing an extra shift. There's not a lot of time to remember to vote. And so it is our job to make sure every cousin, every friend, every next door neighbor, every woman we work with, everybody we say, this is a critical election. Women need Mike in this election. Mike will make a huge difference, and we've already heard so much about it today. We've watched Mike's debate. We've watched his commercials. Many of us know Mike so well. We all know where he stands. He will be very good for women who need to vote. One issue I just want to remind us of, 6 out of 10 recipients of the minimum wage are women. Many of them single women supporting their families, and we know Mike will make sure we raise the minimum wage. A lot of people say they're going to do that, but don't forget, Mike did that when he was the president of the Senate, when it took Republicans and Democrats to move it forward. So we know that Mike knows how to work across the aisle, and that's critical. He supports a women's right to choose. He cares about our kids' education. He's not just checking a box. Mike went to public schools. His sister's a teacher. He came from a town where everybody got a public education, and that's how you got forward. He cares about a healthy environment. We all know about Mike's great desire to clean up the river. That's what got to Augusta in the first place. He's worked hard on this campaign to talk about green energy jobs, to talk about expanding local food and farming and healthy kids' school lunches, the kinds of things everybody wants to hear about. In Maine, this is the guy we want to be our governor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mike. We like 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 Mike. So I want to say a couple more things. Like everybody else who wants to say good things
things about Mike. I just want to say, I didn't have to read it on his website. I have gotten to work with Mike for the last 6 years in Congress. I had a chance to learn from Mike when I was in the state Senate. And I think you all know, but I just want to say, everyone is going to miss Mike in Congress. We're happy to see what's going to happen next, but he's so well liked, he's so well respected. My colleagues know that Mike will stand up for Maine every day. I've talked a million times about how hard Mike fought for the Berry Amendment because he believes that our American service personnel should wear shoes manufactured, hopefully in Maine, but certainly in the United States of America. He's been the ranking member of the Veterans Committee, so our state, where we have a tremendous number of veterans, people who have served our country, he wants to make sure that when they come back, whether they need physical health care, PTSD, mental health issues, getting our homeless veterans off the street, Mike is always there. And I have a special place in my heart for the way Mike helped me in working on an important issue. We were lucky enough to get a call from a very courageous woman in Maine named Ruth Moore. Ruth came forward after serving in the Navy many, many years later and told us her story about a military sexual trauma, sexual abuse she had incurred in the military. She never got the benefits that she deserved. She spent years and years being challenged in her life. And so we wrote a bill called the Ruth Moore Act to make sure that people didn't have the same experience that she did and to make sure she got those benefits. Well, I was proud to be the sponsor of that bill, but you don't do that without somebody on the committee who can shepherd the person right through the hearing, who can talk to the other Republicans and Democrats on that committee to make sure it gets through. Mike helped us hold a wonderful hearing. He got that bill to the floor, and it passed the House of Representatives. My friends that we frequently hear the governor telling his personal story, and I think we're all very compassionate about what an incredibly challenging life our governor has had. The problem is he doesn't translate it into his policy. He doesn't want to expand and make health care insurance available for people who've gone through some of the same challenges as he does. He doesn't want to make it easier to get food on the table or make sure people make wages that make ends meet. And you know what's different about Mike? He doesn't see you every day and tell you that personal story, but he lives that story every single day. And that's what I've seen serving alongside with him. I'm sorry, Mike, I just have to say it again. He's a son of a mill worker, a grandson of a mill worker. 29 years. He packed up his lunchbox, went to the mill, worked hard all day, came home tired, and knows what that is to put in a long day's work. He knows what it is to live in a community where people worry every day about the layoff notices. To work in a community where you can fight pollution in the river to make sure you still have good jobs, but you have healthy people around you. He served in the Maine legislature, starting from that first moment of fighting the river, working his all the way up through the Appropriations Committee, knowing every line on that bill, becoming the Senate president. And I can say, serving with him in Congress, he gets up early every day. He works late every night. And I know, I'm not in my office early, but he is. I'm going out to get my first cup of coffee. Mike's already on his way to work. But he does that because he fights for the people of our state, for those manufacturing jobs, for our kids, for education, renewable energy, our farmers, fishermen. He does not tell us that story every day, but everything Mike has done, while I've worked with him, while we've all seen him, says that he is a solid person of deep integrity, who always remembers where he came from. I think for all of us, this state, this community, his family, he's thinking about him every day. I told this story before, but I ran into Mike just a little while after his mother had passed away. We were getting ready to get on our plane. And I know, we both teared up, I teared up when he told me the story of losing his mom. She was way too young. It was always hard to tell, and it's always hard to lose a mom. She wanted to be there to see Mike sworn in. We're going to win this election because it's important to our state, it's important to every woman, it's important to our children and grandchildren, and we're going to win it for his mom. All right, deep breath. Before I introduce our next guest, I want to thank the Speaker of the House, who's the Speaker? He's over there.
legislators, current and former. Wave if you're one of them. And I also want to thank a lot of good friends that I've worked with, and I know Mike has worked with, the men in the audience. The good guys. So I am so excited to introduce Liz Shuler, the Secretary-Treasurer of the National AFL-CIO. We are incredibly lucky to have with us a woman who's worked on the front lines of the American labor movement for many, many years. And she isn't even that old, you'll see. Liz has led key battles in Washington, D.C. on behalf of workers, women, and the most pressing social issues of our time. Liz has broken barriers for women and young people in the labor movement, and she serves as a key leader of one of our most important labor organizations in our nation. Please join me in welcoming Liz Shuler, the Secretary-Treasurer of the National AFL-CIO.
And I just want to say thank you. It's nothing more powerful than seeing a stage full of women like this at this point in the election, and we're so happy to be here as the labor movement, 12.5 million working men and women. And our president of the Maine AFL-CIO is in the room, Don Barry. I don't know if he's still here, but thank you. He's got women in his family he cares about. So the other day I read an interesting statistic, and it said women's issues are shaping up to be the second biggest issue in the election this year behind the economy. And I said, really? The second? That's crazy. We are the economy. Women's issues, family issues, are economic issues. And Mike Michaud knows this. He gets it. And he's the only candidate we know who can beat Paul LePage. And I'm talking to working women every single day. I've been traveling New England for the last 7 days. I've been out on the road in this region and in this state. And here's what I'm hearing why this election is important to them and to all working women in the state of Maine. So we talked about equal pay. Nationally, I know we're making 77 cents on the dollar. Mike Michaud wants to close that wage gap. And it was said that women are 2/3 of minimum wage workers, 2/3 of tipped minimum wage workers. Paul LePage opposed raising the minimum wage. We know this. We know Mike supports us. And of course, we believe unions are the best way to close the wage gap and gain equal. Wants to crush unions, and we heard Mike Michaud, card-carrying union member, supports everyone's right to collective action, collective bargaining, and we know that's a critical economic issue for women. Another critical issue for women, a lot of women in low-wage jobs have no control over their work schedules. And this is becoming a huge issue because their shifts are assigned sometimes with 24 to 48 hours notice. How do you support a family? How do you actually keep food on the table when you don't even know how many hours you're going to get in a week on your job? Or if you're going to be working in 24 hours to plan for childcare, right? These are incredibly important issues. So we need fair schedules. We need to pass the Fair Scheduling Act. And we can count on Mike Michaud to get it done. Here in the state of Maine, we need that support, and I know that you've been a part of this at the federal level, and will continue to fight for that in the state of Maine. And women have additional responsibilities for caregiving in our homes, yet Maine's employers aren't required to provide earned sick leave. Right? Mike Michaud wants to change that. That's right. And finally, let's talk about health care. Maine used to be a leader in health care. And now, thanks to Paul LePage, you're behind. And that is an outrage. And working Mainers they needed health care coverage, and we need to provide that access. And I was here, as I said, last week, and I spoke to Linda, United Steelworkers Union Millwright. And she's here in the audience. I think she might be somewhere behind me. And when I asked her, she probably speak for herself, but she why she got active in this election cycle, and she said, and I quote Linda, somebody needs to step up for what's right. And her sister is 51 years old. She has a serious health condition, no health insurance. So she's the woman we're talking about, and this is personal for Linda. She's standing right here, standing for Mike for that very reason. And of course, the issue of who should be making decisions about women's health care, and you're going to hear from Ilyse in a moment. But as Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz eloquently put it, LePage, who vetoed the bipartisan Women's Health Initiative, she said, LePage is a person who essentially is in favor of repealing the 21st century. Mike Michaud is on our side. So, you're going to have the opportunity to fire Paul LePage. Today is Halloween, but it's really scary how close this election is. And so, races all across the country are going to be determined by women. That's why we're standing here. So get out there, pull out all the stops, not only to vote yourselves, but recruit every woman you can find, every working person you can find to get to the polls and elect Mike Michaud.
In some parts of our country, and even in the state of Maine, we are living in dark and scary times for women's reproductive rights. But I have hope because of smart, strategic, and amazing women leaders like Ilyse Hogue. She has worked on the front lines of progressive social change for years and is now helping to lead the fight in Washington and across the country for a woman's right to choose. Ilyse flew in from Washington to support Mike Michaud because she knows what's at stake in this campaign for governor. Please join me in welcoming the president of NARAL Pro-Choice America, Ilyse Hogue.
I am from Texas, so my home state is living the dark future that we are here to prevent for Maine women and families. I want to say how honored I am to be on the stage with such an incredible group of Mainers. Y'all have been so friendly to me since I came in. I called my husband last night and said, I want to move to Maine. He's like, yeah! He said, sweetie, go back in January and see if we can have a conversation. I want to especially thank our allies at Planned Parenthood who are on the stage, who have been doing such incredible work throughout Maine and throughout the country caring for women. And Mike Michaud was one of our very, very first endorsements this cycle. And this is my first cycle with NARAL Pro-Choice America as president. As Hannah said, I don't come from the reproductive rights movement, I came to it. Because I believe that the future of women in this country is the future of families and our country. Mike Michaud was one of our very first endorsements. And there are some very clear reasons for that. I like Mike because Mike understands that women's rights are fundamental human rights. There's no such thing as gender equality in a country where politicians feel like they know better than you what you are supposed to do with your body and your life.
That's right.
I like Mike because he gets that when women thrive, our families thrive, our communities thrive, our marketplaces thrive, and our country thrives. Every shred of data shows that when women have the broadest access to family planning, every other socio-indicator, every other socioeconomic indicator in that country goes up, from education to GDP. Mike Michaud gets that. I like Mike because he understands that there is no such thing as economic security in our country without reproductive freedom.
Yeah. Right.
That there is no such thing as being secure and being able to provide for our families in a country that lacks fundamental parental leave, anti-pregnancy discrimination, if we don't get to make the personal decision about when and how we leave the workplace to start our families, about whether we can continue and finish our education so we can go on and build the economic security and contribute professionally and provide for our families on our own terms. Mike Michaud understands this fundamental reality. You know who does not? You know, I say it all the time, and this is seems acutely true here in Maine. I say it all the time. Our opponents are not anti-abortion. If they were anti-abortion, they would join hands with us and fight for comprehensive and universal access. Information in the hands of young people so they can make informed decisions. They would fight for paid sick days. They would fight for parental leave. Our opponents oppose all of those common sense measures that would allow us to make every pregnancy an intended one. They are anti-women and anti-family, and as Liz said, anti-modern 21st century, which is not the way we are living our lives today. Paul LePage's solution for people leaving Maine was not to increase the minimum wage, not to fund education. It was to restrict abortion, as though forcing women to have children before they are ready and not providing those children any opportunity is a common sense solution to bring what we need to this great state's future. While Mike worked to pass comprehensive health care in Washington that eliminated being a woman as a pre-existing condition in insurance plans, Paul LePage rejected the common sense Medicaid expansion that would cover 70,000 uninsured people in Maine. What does that guy have against health care? Take a look at it. If you were at the rally last night, like I was, you heard Senator George Mitchell, who just blew me away. You guys must be so proud. One of the things he said is that Mike listens. Mike did not start off being where he is now in women's reproductive health care. But Mike listened. 7 in 10 Americans, this is true, Republicans, Independents, and Democrats, believe in legal access to abortion because they believe that the government has no place in these most personal decisions, regardless of how they personally feel or what they would personally do. Mike listened to those people. He listened to women and families' stories from Maine who face these critical decisions. He listened hard. And he learned this is not about his personal ideology. It is about what's best for women and families in Maine and across this country. This is the kind of leader that you all need in Maine, but this is the kind of leader we need to lift up and as an example for our country to see. Sure, Aunt Rick Perry, who comes out of my home state in Texas, I can tell you that. So here's what we know. We know Mike can win this election. Yeah. We know Mike will win this election on Tuesday if everyone in this room gets out and don't just vote. What we know is that people in your networks care what you think. The press is not the best person for them to get their information. Your friends and family are. Pick up the phone, call everyone you know, share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, go knock doors this weekend. Peer-to-peer support for Mike Michaud is what is going to put him over the line. Let's do it. So, it's my incredible honor and distinct pleasure to